Imagine a city, the heart of an empire, waking to a disaster that would change its face forever: the Great Fire of London. A catastrophic event that razed the medieval city to the ground, turning landmarks into ashes and leaving thousands homeless. But from these ashes rose a new London, redesigned and reborn. Welcome to Historical Corridors, where history comes alive through the stories of the past. Today, we delve into the flames of 1666, a fire that not only consumed buildings, but also sparked a transformation in urban planning and fire safety measures. Join us as we explore how this disaster reshaped London and why its legacy is more relevant today than ever. If you're fascinated by how historical events shape our world, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to journey through history with us. Now, let's step back to a London before the fire, a bustling urban center on the brink of transformation. In 1666, London was a bustling metropolis, the largest city in England and a thriving center of trade and commerce. Its population was diverse, with a mix of nobility, merchants, artisans, and laborers, all packed into a relatively small area. The architecture of pre-fire London was characterized by medieval, timber-framed buildings, many of which were overcrowded and tightly packed along narrow, winding streets. This urban layout, while full of life and activity, was a tinderbox waiting for a spark. The city's infrastructure lacked the modern planning and fire safety measures we know today, making it highly susceptible to fire. Despite the lack of precise population data for the exact year, it's estimated that London's population was burgeoning, reflecting the city's importance as a commercial hub. The dense, unplanned urban layout contributed not only to the rapid spread of the fire, but also to the challenges in fighting it. As night fell on September 1, 1666, Londoners were unaware that their city was on the brink of a disaster that would reshape its future forever. The clock struck midnight, marking the beginning of September 2, 1666. The spark that ignited one of the most devastating events in London's history began in a seemingly innocuous setting: the King's Bakery, located on Pudding Lane. It's believed that the fire started accidentally in the bakery of Thomas Fariner. Despite efforts to extinguish it, the flames quickly found fuel in the surrounding wooden structures and thatched roofs, a common feature of the time. London's residents were caught off guard. The initial reactions ranged from disbelief to panic as the fire began to spread. The narrow streets and closely packed buildings facilitated the fire's rapid movement, while the lack of an organized fire brigade made early efforts to control the blaze ineffective. As the day broke, the severity of the situation became apparent. The Great Fire of London was not just another small fire. It was a conflagration threatening the heart of the city. As the Great Fire of London took hold, its spread was rapid and devastating. The city's dense layout of wooden buildings, closely packed together along narrow streets, acted as kindling for the flames. Several factors exacerbated the fire's spread. The summer of 1666 had been particularly dry, leaving the timber of the buildings dry and highly flammable. Additionally, the prevailing east winds fanned the flames, pushing the fire westward through the city. By the end of the first day, the fire had grown beyond control, consuming homes, businesses, and landmarks. The traditional methods of creating fire breaks by demolishing buildings were employed too late and often without the consent of property owners, causing delays and confusion. Over 400 streets, 13,200 houses, and 87 churches, including the iconic St. Paul's Cathedral, were consumed in the blaze. The fire's relentless spread showcased the inadequacy of the city's preparedness and response to such a disaster. As the Great Fire of London raged, the city's inhabitants and authorities sprang into action, albeit in a disorganized manner. Without a formal fire brigade, the efforts to combat the inferno relied heavily on the citizenry and ad hoc measures. Citizens formed bucket chains, drawing water from the Thames, while others attempted to tear down houses in the path of the fire to create fire breaks. However, these efforts were often uncoordinated and hindered by the lack of centralized command. The Lord Mayor of London, accused of indecision in the early hours, eventually contributed to the firefighting efforts. King Charles II and his brother, James, Duke of York, offered direct assistance, overseeing the creation of fire breaks and encouraging the demolition of properties to halt the fire's spread. Despite these valiant efforts, the lack of a formal fire brigade and firefighting equipment, coupled with the fire's ferocity and the city's wooden architecture, meant that the fire continued to devastate London for several days. The Great Fire of London left a deep scar on its population. In the immediate aftermath, the city was engulfed not only in flames but also in a crisis of homelessness and despair. While officially, only 6 lives were recorded lost to the flames, the fire's true toll on the people of London was far greater. Nearly 85% of the city's inhabitants were rendered homeless, their homes and livelihoods reduced to ashes. The evacuations were chaotic and desperate. Families fled their homes with whatever belongings they could carry, seeking safety away from the fire's path. The streets teemed with displaced residents, uncertain of their future. The city smoldered with more than just the physical remnants of the fire. Suspicion, religious hatred, and xenophobia also flared in its wake, further complicating the recovery efforts. By September 6, 1666, the Great Fire of London had ravaged the city for 4 days. The turning point came with a decisive, albeit drastic, strategy: the creation of fire breaks. Authorities, led by King Charles II, ordered the demolition of houses and buildings in the path of the fire, creating wide gaps that the flames could not cross. This method, though controversial due to the destruction of property, proved effective in halting the fire's advance. The wind that had fanned the flames for days began to die down, and the fire breaks finally began to serve their intended purpose. The combination of lessened winds and strategic demolitions allowed firefighters and citizens to gain the upper hand. By the end of the day on September 6, the Great Fire of London was largely contained, marking the beginning of the end of one of the most devastating disasters in the city's history. The city that emerged from the ashes would be forever changed. In the aftermath of the Great Fire of London, the city was left in ruins. Over 13,200 houses, 87 parish churches, the Royal Exchange, Guildhall, and St. Paul's Cathedral lay in ashes. The landscape of central London had been irrevocably changed. The monarchy and government's initial reactions were swift. King Charles II personally involved himself, directing aid and the city's recovery efforts. He provided shelters for the displaced and ordered the clearing and rebuilding of the city. Citizens, while grappling with loss and displacement, showed remarkable resilience. The tragedy brought together communities, working side by side to rebuild their lives and the city. The fire also ignited a wave of scientific curiosity and innovation, with figures from the Royal Society playing pivotal roles in the planning of the new London. The Great Fire, a calamity of unprecedented scale, eventually paved the way for a modern London. It prompted new building regulations and fire safety measures, shaping the future of urban development. After the ashes settled, London faced the monumental task of reconstruction. The city's leaders, including Christopher Wren, envisioned a new London, rising from the devastation with modern architecture and urban planning. An Act of Parliament for rebuilding the City of London was passed in 1667, setting the framework for the reconstruction efforts. It mandated the use of fire-resistant materials like brick and stone, replacing the wooden structures that had fueled the fire. The new urban layout included wider streets to prevent future fires from spreading so easily. Christopher Wren's design for the new St. Paul's Cathedral became a symbol of the reborn city, showcasing the resilience and innovation of London. This rebuilding effort not only transformed the physical landscape, but also heralded significant changes in architecture and urban planning. The Great Fire of 1666, while a tragedy, provided a blank canvas that allowed London to reimagine itself as a modern, safer city. The Great Fire of London was a catalyst for significant legislative changes that reshaped the city's future. In the wake of the disaster, authorities recognized the urgent need for stricter building codes and fire safety measures. The London Building Act of 1668 was among the first set of regulations introduced, empowering city authorities to enforce control over building constructions within its boundaries. This act mandated the use of fire-resistant materials, such as brick and stone, instead of timber to reduce the risk of future fires. Equally important, the London Fire Prevention Regulations of 1668 established new rules for water supply pipework and infrastructure, laying the groundwork for an improved firefighting capability. These regulations aimed to ensure a steady water supply for extinguishing fires, addressing one of the critical weaknesses exposed by the Great Fire. These legislative measures, born out of tragedy, transformed London into a model of urban development. The legacy of the Great Fire lives on, not just in the city's architecture, but in its commitment to fire safety and urban planning. The Great Fire of London in 1666, a devastating event, became a catalyst for transformation that shaped the future of urban development, fire safety, and architectural standards. The fire's aftermath led to the implementation of rigorous fire safety measures, practices intended to prevent ignition, contain fires, and ensure the safety of inhabitants became integral to urban planning. These measures have evolved over centuries into comprehensive fire safety codes that protect cities worldwide today. Architecturally, the fire prompted a departure from timber constructions to the use of fire-resistant materials like brick and stone. This shift not only mitigated the risk of future fires, but also influenced architectural aesthetics, leading to the London we recognize today. In terms of urban planning, the Great Fire highlighted the need for organized city layouts. The redesigned London featured wider streets for better access and containment of fires, setting a precedent for modern urban design principles focused on safety, accessibility, and resilience. Thus, the legacy of the Great Fire of London extends far beyond its historical context, contributing to the safety, beauty, and functionality of modern cities around the globe. We've journeyed through the catastrophic event of the Great Fire of London in 1666, from its outbreak to the extensive efforts to extinguish it, the immediate impact on the population, legislative changes, and finally, the city's rebirth. The lessons learned from the Great Fire resonates deeply with contemporary challenges in urbanization and disaster management. The fire underscored the necessity for resilient infrastructure, the importance of comprehensive urban planning, and the implementation of strict building codes and fire safety measures. Today, these principles guide our approach to urban development, emphasizing the need for resilience against disasters. The Great Fire of London reminds us of the power of community, innovation, and foresight in overcoming and preventing catastrophes. As we reflect on the past to build a safer, more resilient future, let's continue the conversation. If you found this journey through history enlightening, give us a like, subscribe for more insights, and share your thoughts or additional information in the comments below. Together, we can learn from history to navigate the challenges of today and tomorrow. Thank you for watching Historical Corridors. Join us next time as we explore another pivotal moment in history.